welcome to Way Back When with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Way Back When History Show. We're your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the mother-daughter travel team on the Love Your Parks tour, and also publishers of two digital interactive publications. We have Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine, that's our variety publication, as well as Parks and Travel Magazine that covers parks and travel, including Roots Travel. So if you're looking for your family history and researching that, that is also part of Parks and Travel, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's Third Friday Family History Show. And of course, you know, when we talk about family history research, that means we have Miss Holly T. Hansen, the Gen teacher and president of Family History Expos with us. I encourage you to go to her website, familyhistoryexpos.com. And also she writes articles. You can listen to her interviews and see the articles in both magazines. So you can go to blendradioandtv.com, or you can go to nationalparktraveling.com. You'll see her in our expert department. But very excited to have her on the show today. Nancy and I have done some extensive travel through Louisiana, specifically the northwestern portion and also this north central section of Louisiana this year in the end of July and into early August. And this was our second time back in the region. So we went to the no man's land, which was kind of the neutral strip after the Louisiana Purchase happened. It took a few years, actually 3 years, for law and order to come into play in Louisiana. So we were in the area. It was swampy, and there was all kinds of good history and so many things happening there. So very excited to have Holly join us to talk about researching your family history in Louisiana. I think it's actually the second time we're going to talk about that with her. So welcome back, Miss Holly. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm happy. It's so glad to be here. Louisiana is a fun place to talk about, so I'm looking forward to our show today.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for it.
I know, it's exciting. You know, Louisiana, we love Louisiana, especially their fried food.
Yes, meat pies. Yum.
Yes, I just keep looking down at that little extra, you know, tire I got when we were there. But, you know, I know we had Arlene Gould on a show with you. I think it was last year, right, that we talked about Louisiana family history. Arlene is from the Natchitoches Visitor Bureau. Natchitoches is the oldest settlement in the state. And when we went back, she took us to two genealogy libraries. Actually, Kelly took us to the Natchitoches Genealogy Library in downtown Natchitoches, which is part of the National Historic District. And we went in, saw all these records, and we also went to the Cammie G. Henry Research Center. Very fascinating, which is connected to the Northwestern State University. I think I even texted you like, "Hey, Holly, we're in a research library, and
right.
Man, there's rules. There's rules to look at archives."
Yeah,
I didn't know
right.
that, about all that. There's a list. You can't touch books without this. You can't, there's you got to be careful of the materials. That was a whole new thing. But we thought of you in there because we were just in this paradise of books, and it seemed that the books were not just these were some collections that people like Cammie Henry did. She collected, and we're going to do shows with you in these libraries coming up as well, so everyone stay tuned for that. But these books some of them were like Cammie Henry kept a daily journal, like a scrapbook of what was happening with she put stories in from the newspaper, what was going on in the town, who was getting married, who died, all of that kind of stuff. So that was kind of interesting. Is that something you normally find in these libraries, our personal journals and things like that?
Yes. Some of the things that I found, I thought were, the first time I saw them, I thought, who would ever think you would find that there? And yet the more archives and libraries and little special collections that I view, the more I find these really amazing resources that they're much more common than you think. And so we need to look for them. We really do need to look for them. One of the classes that we had during the International Expo, Diane Richards talked about ledgers, company business ledgers. These are private businesses, and the ledgers exist. And she had shared with us a research project that she had found ledgers like in 3 different universities, 3 or 4 different universities for this little company, and they ended up in different places, but they all talked about the same people. And these old businesses, the forts and the things that were going on early during the settlement of these areas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, any of them, it was the traders. Those guys had their own records, and they traded fur, and they traded with the natives, they traded with the squatters, whoever was there. They traded. It wasn't just money, and they kept track of all of that.
Wow.
And the records exist. It's quite fascinating, the different kind of things that you're going to find.
And a lot of times, like when we were talking about the scrapbook, like Hemi Henry's, they were saying in the library that not everything's digitized because of how much the resources that you need to be able to digitize it all. So if you want to see it, they may be able to digitize it and send it to you, and there is a fee for all of that kind of thing. They have photos and so many things, but you basically need to go there for a lot of stuff,
Right, and that's true across the board for any place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot. We have access to more records than we've ever had in the history of the world through digitization. But it's just a drip in the bucket compared to what's really out there. Yeah.
Now, you've given your article, and everyone, it's up on nationalparktraveling.com. You type in Louisiana Family History Research, you'll find it. Holly gave a list of these different record types you can find in places like these libraries, and you also listed some of the libraries that people can go to, and places like FamilySearch.org. But it's kind of interesting because you talk about migration routes. That's something we've been, I don't know, you just start stumbling into these migration routes. And in Louisiana, like there was the El Camino Real de las Tejas. It's a National Historic Trail now, but it was one of the royal roads from the Spanish, but it was also used by Indians way back when, the ancestral peoples. And so there's history connected with that, but we also thought riverways. Part of why this area of Louisiana is so rich in regards to family history records, I think, was also, Nancy, wasn't that true, like connected because of the Red River that and the Sabine River? So there was the riverways seemed to be part of that. And that
was the main mode of travel in the early days. To take a horse and a wagon across country was much slower. It brings to my mind, remember that movie with you guys, I'm not so good with movies like you are, but Jimmy Stewart, and they were sailing down the river, and these traders took him and hit him on the head and threw him in a hole, and what was that movie? But
oh wow,
you had to be careful because there were savages out there. There were good people and bad people who'd help you along the way, and people who'd steal your stuff. And but a lot of river travel, especially in the South and the lower areas where there was a lot of water.
And people always settled where there's water. So
yeah, that's how that was their commerce in order to sell their goods. People, you'd see some of the early times. You'll see the land would be in long strips rather than. Later everything's township and range, right? So you've got these square boxes of how land was divided. But early, there'd be these long strips because everybody had to have access to the water.
Right.
And they would put their product in those hogsheads, those big barrels that they're small on each end and big in the middle, and they'd roll them because you could tip it one side and turn it, or tip it to the other side and turn it. That's why the barrels were shaped that way. Those old wooden barrels.
Wow.
I thought it was just for whiskey.
Well,
hey,
they transported cabbage, tobacco, everything in those hogsheads. Yeah.
Wow. Well, those barrels. There was that one lady who went down the Niagara Falls in a wooden barrel. I can't remember her name, but
how much fun that must be.
I know, you go, girl. So the other thing.
Not me.
I'll pass on that one.
Listen, when it comes to heights, I'm we're down on the flatland today. We're talking. We're in Yuma, Arizona, and After being in Colorado on some of those mountain passes, I'm like, you know what? I'll go down the river easy, just, whatever it is, a raft. It's nice and level. I love, love, love Colorado, but man, it feels different to be back on flatland. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's just saying. The
Uh,
other thing in Louisiana, so like this no man's land strip, right? So there was no law and order because it took, again, we're talking about rivers and the ocean and people, that mode of transportation back then was by ship. And so, your
mhm.
letter, here's the officials going, okay, the war's over. This is happening here. Because, they had the Battle of New Orleans. They had all these things happening. And the French and Napoleon was part of all. I mean, there was like all this stuff going on. And Louisiana was like this hotbed of like everything going. It's like Louisiana and Missouri. I think Missouri's got to be one of the most fascinating states
Oh
for
yeah.
what was going on.
Mhm.
But so here it is now. This is Louisiana, but everybody's like, there's no one telling anybody what to do, and there's some crazy stories that come out of there, like really fascinating. But some of the El Camino Real, that trail, was really interesting. We went to a graveyard. We went to the oldest cemetery in the state, the American cemetery, which is in Natchitoches. But then also to the cemetery, it was in Zwolle, Louisiana, right in the hotbed of no man's land, and also uh, part of the El Camino Real de los Tejas Trail, and that goes basically from Mexico through San Antonio up to Nacogdoches, Texas, and then goes all the way across through Sabine and Toledo Bend area in Louisiana, where all the lakes are. It's beautiful, and then to Natchitoches. And so we basically did the trail between Natchitoches, Louisiana, and Nacogdoches, Texas. So, and I'm going to say there were old Civil War sites everywhere, all the way through. In Texas, there's like a round history marker, like every, not even a mile, man. You're just pulling the car over
Right.
in a few minutes. But this cemetery was in Zwolle, part of the El Camino, and it was where a mission was, Mission Dolores, I think. And I'm going to get it all mixed up on my missions here. There was a lot of churches, a lot of missions, and the mission was gone. And this was like next to this horse pasture in Zwolle. It was beautiful on this hill, and it was a cemetery. And so some of the graves were really old, and you could barely read what they were on. And then some of them were little crosses, and those were for the babies and for the young. And there was one batch where a lot of them had died at we don't know what and how. Are there places to go to find out more about those graves? Like who
Yeah,
could it be if
there
you
are.
can't read it?
One of the things you're going to watch for is old journals and ledgers that people keep. They'll show up in special collections somewhere, and somebody will make a comment of it. People who travel, they might have, somebody traveling through the area that never really settled there. Often they will make entries of, oh, I had this sad thing, like we went through this town and just a year ago they had this sad thing, and they'll tell the story about it. It's not something that you can quickly put a finger on, but I always look for newspapers. Maybe they didn't have a paper printed right in that area. Was there a newspaper printed in a city not too far away at the time? Just when did newspapers show up in the area, and if they were around, even if it was for a distance, something like that would get picked up because that was news, and it scares you. And they're going to say, hey, this is going on, and what happened? And because people have a heart, and they feel compassion, and they want to protect their own families, but they feel compassion for people's loss, and those things get picked up.
Okay. Now, the other part too, we went to what's called the New Llano Colony. I say Llano because I'm in southern Arizona. And that's how you say it. It's 2 L's, ANO. And this was in Vernon Parish. Vernon Parish it's in Leesville in Louisiana. And we went to a veterans memorial there, so that was also an interesting part of the history. And then also went to this place, the New Llano Colony, and it was a colony, and it was very similar to what we experienced in Greeley, Colorado, where someone came across and decided, and I don't know what, this was in the 1800s, okay? This guy did this. This guy's like, we're going to build our own colony. and it's a utopian society, and he did it in Antelope Valley, California. And then they were farming and everything. It was too hard for some reason. They decided to go to New Llano, this New Llano colony. That's what it was called. And over there, a lot of foresting was going on. And there's a really good museum in Beauregard Parish just down the road that has a family history of all the foresting families and how they moved from. And I didn't realize this, but they moved according to forest operation. They'd go in, do the clear cutting,
Yes.
move. So that was a whole new thing for us. But this New Llano colony, they were looking for this utopian society, and I don't know what's going on, but I want to start doing I want to dig into this stuff. They're creating their own laws, their own businesses. Women had equal that.
It's like a commune.
You'll be able to find a lot of information on that.
Yeah,
it'll be fascinating. You'll be able to find a lot of information. There'll be local resources that you can get into, but don't forget to look at like the state archives. They're going to have records. They're located in Baton Rouge, the Division of Archives and Record Management. But they're going to have things for the whole state. It'll pick that up. The National Archives in Fort Worth. There's going to be information.
Fort Worth, even though it's
as well as
Texas. That's
the regional archives for Louisiana, and so you're going to find a lot of Louisiana records there and military information. And it kind of depends, because some of the military records for the whole United States are sent to St. Louis, or so some records are divided by the type, like it's military or whatever, but mostly everything's in regions. And so Louisiana is in that Fort Worth. Fort Worth holds the records for, I'm not sure what all states, but Louisiana is part of that. There's a state library. There are a lot of local libraries, and I always look for those private collectors, people who are like me. We have a fetish for something, and we collect everything we can get who would know that, a library of 10,000 books in Croydon, Utah, all about Georgia, Not all of my books are about Georgia, but a good portion of them are, and that's something that I'm very interested in here in Utah. And you wouldn't know that unless you ask a few questions. But there are people.
How do you find people like you who have all these kind of private collections? Are you finding them in groups, or I know with you doing the family history expos and the online expos that you do, like the international one, and all these genealogists are always on your platform. Is that how? Are there is it through societies that everyone joins?
You know how I do it? I'll go to the local library and I'll talk to the librarian there, and I'll say, who in your town is just like the local historian? Maybe they haven't published, but they're really interested in history. And they'll tell me. They know who they are. They know who these people are. And they'll connect me with them and help me, make a phone call. We'll meet up somewhere, and sometimes that person will invite me to their home because I'm very interested in history, and they'll show me what they have, or they'll say, you really need to talk to Frank Jones, who has a map collection that, blah, blah, blah. But you have to ask the local people. They know who. But they don't just volunteer that information. You have to really have a keen interest and show that you're sincere in what you're doing, because, we live in a world where people kind of doubt you first. They're like, I don't know you. But after you talk to them, and you don't overwhelm them with your personal story, because they have to help a lot of people, and they really could care less about your personal story unless it affects them in some way.
Oh,
but
okay.
showing, it's really true. Some of them they just look at you with the deer in the headlights look,
Here we go again.
But
here comes another person with another. Yeah, because it's all. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And if you show appreciation for their collections and their library and what they have, say, oh my heavens, tell me what you have behind the walls that everybody can't see, because and they'll take you back there and show you I know we've talked about this before in the museums, that you guys, when I've sent you on a mission and you ask, and then they go, oh, well, in this room, we have all this stuff we don't have room to display. And they have a lot. I mean, I have found in collections, let's see, what is the telegraph
Oh,
records,
cool.
the
Oh,
actual
wow.
communication that the telegraph officer wrote them down and saved them. And I have found those. Now, wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, that's interesting. Hmm.
And it's not common. It's not common, but I've seen them. And so I'm always on the look. It's like, what do you guys have that nobody else knows about? You know, and I'm asking those kind of questions.
That's
And
interesting.
when they see you're really interested, they'll. So if you're in Texas, a lot of Texas was settled because of the railroad. You can ask a lot of railroad questions, and you'll find out they have different kinds of records than you even knew existed. I remember learning about train sheets. What's a train sheet? Well, they have these big tables in the railroad station that's like the size of a big desk. You know, those old wooden desks that we used to have that when you go in somebody's office and they'd have this big wooden desk. Well, they have these pads of paper that fit the size of that desk. Like you've seen a desk calendar. It's a sheet of paper, and each month you rip it off. They're kind of like that, only they're bigger.
Wow.
And it has the rail. It has 150 miles of the railroad.
Wow.
And that's what they're responsible for. And they know when every guy gets off and when they get on. And so they work through and keep track of stuff on this paper. And when it's a new month or a new whenever, they just rip it off and then they start over fresh. And they have it all planned out. Well, some places have saved those. And you can see where your guy was if you're looking for. Now, if you talk to railroad people, they'll say, oh, we don't have anything for family history. Well, that's wrong. They really have tons of stuff. Railroad fans are interested in gauge of steel for railroad tracks. They're interested in how did they cross the waterways. They're interested in the trains themselves and what kind of train it was, and if it was a steam engine or a diesel but in the process, there's all this stuff. Because who ran the trains? Who built the tracks? Who did it all? People did. There's surveyor notes. That the surveyors went out there. They interviewed the local squatters and native populations, whoever was there, and they'd write the stuff down as they're going out there. You'd be surprised what you see in some of the minutes and things that they've kept track of.
It's amazing because it's true. When we went to the Cami Henry Research Center, we met with the head librarian, and you'll meet her on a radio show, and she's like, well, you know, she's trying to figure out what we want, and we don't know because we're not on a specific mission. And it was our first time really digging into a genealogical library and finding out how it even works, right? And, you know, she brought out all these things and like, you know, these like that big, you know, these scrapbooks that Cami Henry kept. And I mean, I'm even looking at the photos now, and they have old cartoons about swamp diggers. And I mean, there's like these men dressed up and what was going on. And you see all the one was really funny. There was the Cane River superstitions, where the newspaper, somebody wrote all these superstitions that people had in the region. And so it's funny. So you get to have we've talked about this on the show with you. You get a feel for it. But I mean, going in there was really fascinating. By the time we left, how many stories do you think we like sat down? Well, you know, we got to do, we walked out basically going, we have like a women's history show we could do every month by the time we were done. Like the women, more women's history came out of that library just in conversation. We found out all these authors that lived there, and the authors seem to keep records too, the authors themselves. So it was these famous authors, filmmakers, you know, all of this. It was really, I don't know, it just was this whole other world. And then it was just fascinating because we looked at it in a different way, and we just found out like these really cool stories, all of us having this conversation in this amazing library.
Well, everything, it's different. Yeah, it's different too, the type of library you're in.
Yeah.
If you're in a genealogy library or history library, what they'll talk to you about and what they ask and everything is different than if you walk into an archive or a museum. It's different. So you kind of just let them. I just like to listen. I like to go up and say, tell me about your library. How does your catalog work? I ask them just a few things so that I can be more productive in their library. And as they begin to talk to me, I learn, you know, I begin to judge how friendly they are, and how, if it's someone that really knows the collection or just somebody that's filling in for the day, you know, you just kind of get there. I've been in a county courthouse where I've traveled 3,000 miles and have the person at the front counter say, we don't have those records. You know, I want to look at naturalization papers, and they say they don't exist. Well, I always do my homework a little bit. I check places out before I go. I want to know, when are they open, you know, and make sure that they're not closed for some special thing. I mean, I've gone to Georgia to find out that I planned my trip over a holiday. And, you know, you would think Veterans Day is a national holiday, that you would think I would know that, but no, I get there and guess what? The state archive is closed because it's a holiday, and I didn't get to go do my research that I traveled all the way for.
Oh, I know
to do
about
that once or twice,
Mm.
and then you say, you know, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to make sure I have a plan that works, and so you work on that, because I've been where they're building a new library and the old library's been boxed up, sitting in some storage unit waiting for the new library shelves. I mean, I've had those kinds of experiences, so I kind of do my homework ahead, but here I was in a county courthouse, and the person that was helping me didn't know the records that existed. I said, where's the recorder? I mean, where's your supervisor? And she got really upset with me, but I said, I'd like to talk to your supervisor, because I didn't travel clear across the country for you to tell me they don't exist when I'm pretty sure they do. And she got real, you know, touchy, but she went and got her supervisor, and they came out, and the lady goes, oh yes, we have those records, just follow me. And she took me right back in behind the wall and turned me loose in the records. And this girl that said they didn't exist kind of had to, she didn't try to help me anymore. You know, I'm sure it made her feel bad, but she wouldn't tell somebody that ever again. Now she knew that they were there. But those things happen, and you learn, the more research that you do and the more libraries you visit, you learn if you're talking to somebody that knows the collection or not. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's your first time into doing research, you won't know that right off. Mm-hmm. So ask lots of questions and ask them, you know, who's the person in charge of the collection that gathers things. Because if you find out who the person is that makes decisions, then you'll get a person that knows the collection well. So those are some simple things. And I would do that in Louisiana, because they have a lot of things that are just local.
They do.
Louisiana has a lot of local history that's not available online. You're going to have to go there and make friends with the locals.
And they are so nice. I'm telling you, everyone talks to you, no matter, they don't know, you know, we're there for a story or anything. People talk to you. They will help you in the street with anything. I mean, it doesn't matter. They are so nice. And so you should go to Louisiana anyway. Like, seriously, it's one of the most
so much fun.
I love Louisiana. I really love that state, and I love their food. But they also, but the history, like, okay, so here's a weird, the history thing. When the genealogical museum, they did take us around, and then as we were leaving, but we also have this room in the back, and it turned out to have all these property maps. So, and you can see how it shifted, right? Now think about these swamps and everything. Think about, like, now, Sabine Parish, remember when Cypress Bend, I'm like skipping all over here. Cypress Bend Resort is a beautiful resort, golf course, well known for golf. Just beautiful, great food, great rooms. We stayed there a previous time that we were in Louisiana, and it overlooks the river. You got the Sabine River, and so you know, Linda Curtis Sparks and Wanda Rivers took us around this time. And what I didn't know was that what we were looking at over this water, when they filled it with water and they did this damming, the Toledo Bend Dam and all that, well, there used to be a town, the Sabine town, this little town, and it's now underwater. And it was a thriving little community, and then people moved on, and it had to do with mining and logging or some kind of industry. I can't remember what it was, but we were looking out. There was a town. There was even a grave. She sent me photos. You're looking at it, what used to be a town. And so they're actually building a museum. And so some of our conversations revolved about things we learned from you. So about what they're taking in family history, because now everywhere we're like family history.
You'll just learn. Yeah, you'll learn more and more. And the maps are so phenomenal. These maps that you find in these little locations, and maps have just not been digitized on any I mean,
Yeah.
there's digital maps out there, but some of these great maps, just amazing things that you're going to find in these special
It's
collections.
a whole art thing to me. The art.
Well,
Yeah, it is.
these huge maps, I mean, if you're going to digitize them, you're either going to have to photograph square at a time and then somehow join them together, or you need a huge scanner or a
Right.
huge camera to be able to take a good picture of some of those big maps.
It's like photographing artwork to me because
Mhm.
maps to me it's a science. It's really cool. I remember way back when back in our print days of the magazine, and back when there was a program called PageMaker, which was really your layout
Mhm.
for typesetting. Well, there was some tools where you could use like you could draw lines and whatever, but not to do an art thing, right? And that was a program, we were using that for a reason, but I figured out how to manipulate this one part of the program, and I used to draw our maps in the magazine by that. It was painstaking. It was like one little bit of,
Mhm.
but it was
Mhm.
this science, and by doing that I really learned what real cartographers do, and it's really amazing. And back in those days they would put watercolors, and
Mhm.
there was just this art to it that I love. Those
Well,
are
I have this little scanner that's portable that it has a lid on it. You can put pictures and scan just if you're at someone's home, but you can take the lid off and turn it upside down and scan square by square by square by square. Great big map, and it has a stitching software that comes with it, and it just puts it all together for you.
Wow.
So when you go to okay, so this is a really good
Huh.
resource here. So when you go to like like a repository, as you call them, you're going
Mhm.
to repositories. When you go there, are you scanning the information? Like, is that how?
Sometimes if they'll allow it,
Yeah.
often they won't. Sometimes they'll allow you to take a picture of it with your cell phone or a
Mm,
camera. Sometimes they won't. Every repository have their own rules,
right.
but some
Yeah.
will allow you to scan. But you see, scan use light, and so light may be forbidden, because it does.
Yeah, it does harm.
Mm-hmm.
Can do.
And
So
fingers.
it just really
Fingers.
depends. It depends on the. There was once a private collector that I met with. This was in North Carolina, and she had these old furniture maps. They were as tall as I am, and not, if I stretched my hands out, they weren't as wide as from fingertip to fingertip, but they were pretty big.
Mm.
And she allowed me to take them from her home and go down to FedEx Kinko's and get them copied on those big plotter copy machines.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was able to do that.
Wow.
But not everybody's going to let you do, not everyone will
Yeah.
let you
Mm.
do things like that. But
Yeah.
so everywhere you go, it's a little different experience. And sometimes you just can write about it. You can't even take a picture.
Wow.
But
This is
but
amazing. Like
it's
my mind of what you can do and how you piece it together. So it's kind of like when you bring it all home, do you kind of put it up on your wall, like print it out and go like, okay, this is where so and so, especially if they traveled, right? If there was like a migration route.
well, I have a friend who prints, but you can use FedEx. You can use anybody. You don't have to have a friend. I just happen to have a friend that does printing for business, but and so I have them print all my stuff. I just pay them, but you just put it back together, and you can print it on. You can use it for wallpaper to cover your whole wall if you wanted to. You can print things as big as you want if you get a good scan of them.
Mm-hmm. And then that
And so I
helps.
have a lot of big maps in my personal collection, and I just roll them up, and so they stay flat when I want to use them. I have these little hooks on the front of my library shelves, and when I want to use the map, I just clip them on there, and then it just hangs down. And I always roll them with the print on the outside. Usually you would think, I'll put the print on the inside because that'll protect it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you try to look at it, it rolls up and you can't see anything. If you put the print on the outside, when you lay it flat, it'll lay flat for you.
Good
When you
tips.
roll things.
Wow. That's a good tip.
So we're not even just covering Louisiana. We're covering it and how to actually do the research and how to scan and everything, man. This is fascinating. This is really, really fascinating. So going back to Louisiana, these colonies, these utopian societies. So there's Greeley that did it. There's New Llano Colony. Okay. Are there more of these in the country that you know of? That there's like this era. I mean, this was before World War II. And I don't know what it was, but in the 1800s, like,
Yes,
hey,
there were.
wow, this is fascinating.
There are. There's some in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest. They're all over.
Really?
They're all over.
This is
Mhm.
interesting. I'm going to dig into this some more because it's fascinating.
There's one that's the colonies, and they became people that made like washing machines or dishwashers or
Wow.
I want to
kinda
say
like-
Savannah Colony, but that's not right. But it's up by Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
I'm just coming off the top of my head. But yes, I've seen them as I've traveled there. They do, and there are different purposes of why they were created
Yeah.
and what they did while they were there. Yeah.
It seems like everybody really just wanted to lead a better life that was, freer, but at the same time working together. But then you always find out people are people, and leadership is leadership or not. So they all kind of crumbled. It's a really interesting thing to me about what was going on with everything. I will say Louisiana has got to be really fascinating to do history because of like the neutral strip. So the maps change there for sure.
But you have such a diversity of culture in
Oh
Louisiana.
my gosh, yes. Cajun, Creole, and
Yes.
Indian, Spanish, French. I mean, it's like everybody's in there, even the British, German. It's such a blend of culture. And of course, African American for sure.
And it's interesting how it blends. It's also interesting how it stays separate.
Mhm.
Because there is as people intermarry within cultures, you see this amazing blend, but there are also parts of it that they keep their autonomy. It's very fascinating how it works.
That's interesting because, okay, so here's another family history thing. When we got to Natchitoches, our first day there we spent the entire day at the folk festival and the folk art festival. It was really something we've done interviews on, and finally we got there. It was the 40th annual one at NSU, the Northwest University. And I have to tell you, Nancy, do you think that's still one of our favorite things on earth that we did?
We spent hours there, and talking to the people that were showing, what they had to offer was incredibly interesting.
Yeah, because it was family traditions, and it was like the musicians were family bands. Like one guy was in his 90s, and playing Zydeco music, and you could see the kids coming in through the, in generations.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a way of life. They were trying
They
to
preserve it. They preserve it so well.
So I want to say events need to be part of this because we saw basket weavers, Native American basket weavers. One lady, I've got her card and everything. She sold out of her baskets as soon as she got there, but she sat just weaving so people would see this culture. And so we sat and talked to her. I wanted to get a recording, but I couldn't. It was so loud, with all the music. And she sat and told us about her family history and how her father actually put their language, recorded their language in the dictionary, and it's actually in Congress and everything, that it's an actual dictionary of their language, of their Native American tribe. But she said, at one time they were just, they were, I don't want to say a pure tribe, but they didn't, they were separate, like you were saying. And then it got to the one generation when they started meeting everyone because they really stayed in one spot. So they weren't as migratory as other tribes. And then, through generations, then people intermarried. So now it's a little bit changed. Yet they're still trying to honor their traditions. And she was basket weaving from these longleaf pines that they have there. And it was neat going on the trail the next day to actually hike that trail where you could see them, and we did. And they really are long. She was teaching us when you pull the pine leaf, and that. So I think if you go to those kinds of events, one lady was making brooms. She was making brooms and taught us the history of brooms. You
bet. I always look for those type of things. You will learn more with feet on the ground, going and planning your vacations around those kind of events. That'll really make a big difference.
There was a guy doing maps. Remember that? He was there too, Nancy. You saw the map guy had all these maps, historical maps of Louisiana, because again, it changed. So you want to see a map, was this before Louisiana was a state, before statehood? when things were territories, but that folk festival, I learned, I mean, that was something.
That fellow that was painting eggs,
The lady, yeah, the Pizanki legs,
yeah,
eggs.
Sanki.
Yeah, we
Uh,
interviewed her. She's Czechoslovakian, and so she was doing the eggs.
Yeah.
No, not Czechoslovakia, Ukraine. Oh, it's like an Easter egg, but they do these eggs, and they use beeswax to paint and carve and
Yeah,
mold.
I've seen those before. They're gorgeous.
they're
The
so.
detail is amazing on
I
them.
know. It's like, when you say somebody painted an egg, you think, oh, well, maybe they put flour on an egg and that's that. It's not like that at all. It's amazing.
No, it's intricate, very,
Mhm.
very amazing
Mm.
detail. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
Holly, thank you so much. It's been such a good conversation. There's so much we could go on for hours. I know, let's go to Louisiana. I feel like let's get in the car and go. It was so much fun. Everyone, again, familyhistoryexpos.com is a resource. We've got books, charts, computer software, games, all kinds of things to help you on your quest to research your family history. You also have online courses so tell us about that before we go, the online courses.
We have a lot of in our video classes. We talk about New York. We talk about just about everything. We have a lot of different classes that you can take on how to use Google Maps, how to use different tools on the internet, as well as specifics about areas of family history research. And they're pay-per-view, so you just pay for it and immediately you can watch it.
Oh, nice, nice. So everyone, go again to familyhistoryexpos.com. You also have, of course, every third Friday here on Big Blend Radio at 11 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, you can hear a brand new segment with Holly. You have your Ask the Pros every week. And then also, I wanted to talk about your Family History Library Research Retreat. That comes up November 18th through 23. So that's in person or is it online?
It's in person. So people that come to Salt Lake City will spend a week with you in the largest genealogical library in the world with records from all over the world and help you do your very own personal research.
Very cool. That's really
Very
cool.
cool.
And can you attend online at all or no?
We do broadcast the classes. Each morning we do teach some classes and we broadcast those. You're able to register for just the online broadcast. But the real sweet part of the retreat is being in Salt Lake and having access to the myriad of records that are available there on microfilm and in their book collections.
Like we were saying, you can't get that. That's why these libraries, you go in and it would be someone's full-time job sometimes just to digitize all of that. I mean, it's huge, and I don't know how people can even get it all out there. It's amazing because a lot, like you said, that's a drop in the bucket because there's stuff out there, but sometimes you really need to go if you can to go to those places or at least call them, and get help because
the census records have been digitized for the United States around 1790 to all that we're aware of for the U.S. federal census have been digitized. And if your family doesn't show up in there, that's the main resource people go to when they begin. If your family doesn't show up there, what are you going to do? Yeah. And that's what we're going to help you with. That's what Family History Expos is all about.
Right on, right on. Thank you, everybody. Again, familyhistoryexpos.com is the website to go to. Also, go to blendradioandtv.com or nationalparktraveling.com to keep up with Holly's articles and interviews with us here on Big Blend Radio. You can keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com. They air Mondays, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Fridays and Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's all up on bigblendradio.com. And thank you so much, Holly. We're going to play a song. This is called As Good As Me. And I love playing this song. So this is my excuse to play it again. It's one of my favorites. It's from John Roniger. He's based in New Orleans. And he writes all kinds of crazy songs about crazy characters of New Orleans. So I encourage you to go listen to that. But this is actually on one of his very early records that we first connected with him over, oh my gosh, way over 10, 12, 14 years ago. No, like yeah, a long time ago.
Long
It's called Addicted, but this is the song As Good As Me. It's all guitar work, and it's just one of our favorite songs. So here it is, As Good As Me. Thanks so much, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you. See you next time.